My name is Elis Kakouli-Konstantinou, and this is the webinar titled Cloud Technologies in Language Learning and Google Workspace for Education. A few words about me before we start. I am an English language instructor at the Cyprus University of Technology. And I am also a teacher trainer for the Pedagogical Institute of the Ministry of Education in Cyprus. And I'm very happy to be with you today delivering this webinar. I am a member of the DC4LT team. And I hope we have a nice interaction today, and I hope you have the opportunity to gain some new knowledge, let's say, out of this. So let's start. Let me give a brief overview of what we're going to be doing today. So the first part of this workshop will be dedicated to a brief introduction on cloud technologies and the Google Workspace for Education. And then we're going to proceed more specifically to the use of the Google Workspace for Education in language classes. The third part will involve some collaborative work on the use of the workspace in our own educational contexts. And then you will have the opportunity to create your own Google class. And finally, we will conclude with some reflective discussion. So let's start with the first part, cloud technologies and the Google Workspace for Education. So some brief introduction on cloud computing and what cloud computing basically involves. According to the National Institute for Standards and Technology, cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, such as networks, servers, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. These services are provided at the level of infrastructure, at the level of platform, and also at the level of software. In other words, the applications that we have the chance as users eventually to use. The term cloud was inspired by the cloud, let's say, pictures, which were depicted in information technology books that were used to conceptualize the complex concepts of the internet and online environments. Now, what are the benefits of cloud computing in education? They are numerous, let me say. First of all, educational institutions have the opportunity to focus on education and research instead of being bothered with issues such as information technology infrastructure. The first benefit that could be noted is cost effectiveness. So they're very cost effective, and they're very, let's say, easy to use because there is convenience, practicality, and flexibility. Remember that in order to use cloud computing, you should only have a smart advice, let's say, and connection to a smart device and connection to the internet. So either a smartphone or a tablet or a computer will do it. There is high scalability in the sense that there can be used, these technologies can be used simultaneously by many people all over the world. There is ease of use, they're very user-friendly, and as we said before, the technology infrastructure needed is minimal. Of course, there have been some concerns expressed, such as the fact that these systems might prove costly in the future. Customers have no control over the technologies used, which can change any time without any notice or a very short notice. Some security and privacy concerns always exist, and reliability issues in the case when some software don't work properly, and so on and so forth. So no one can deny that cloud computing was a huge blessing during this pandemic. The world turned upside down, all sectors were affected, and we've experienced a transfer of all kinds of services online. All countries around the world experienced education disruption. We saw schools closing down, and the educational institutions that managed to survive and operate properly were the ones that eventually embraced cloud computing, which was characterized as the unsung hero. Of course, there were challenges encountered, such as data privacy issues in cases when data were transferred at home and legal issues arose. There were internet quality issues because of the high demand, applications issues when different applications didn't work properly, and of course some personal devices issues such as needs for updates or installation of antivirus systems, and so on and so forth. Now, some of the most well-known cloud computing providers in education are Google, with its Google Workspace for Education, which was formerly known as the G Suite for Education. Microsoft with its Office 365 for Education, and Amazon Web Services with its cloud credits for research, and Amazon Web Services Educate. As we said before, this workshop, this webinar will be dedicated to the Workspace for Education. The core services of which are the following. We have Google Classroom, which is basically a platform, learning management system that allows for interaction between the learners themselves and learners and teachers. Gmail, which is basically the email services provided by Google. Google Drive, which is a storage device, an online storage device, an online storage space where we can save our files on the cloud. Google Calendar, the time management scheduling, let's say, device that allows us to manage our time and organize our activities. The Vault, which serves as an archiving space. Google Documents, Google Sheets, and Google Slides, which are basically the tools that we use in order to create Word documents, spreadsheets, and slides. They are the equivalent of Microsoft Office Word, Microsoft Office Excel, and PowerPoint. Everything that you create using these tools is automatically stored in the G Drive space. We also have Google Forms, which is basically the tool that you can use in order to create questionnaires, surveys, in other words, or quizzes. Google Sites, used for creating websites, and Hangouts, which is basically web messaging, let's say, tool. Okay, now why Google Workspace for Education in particular? Well, it's free of charge. The fundamentals plan is free of charge. There is 24 hours support at no cost. There are no advertisements popping up, so it's you have the this freedom to use it without any disruption. Customer has ownership of data, which is again something really basic. It allows for easy collaboration and self-reflection, as well as collaborative reflection. There is possibility to organize the course material through the Google Classroom platform, as we said before, and also through the use of the G Drive. There is administration of student work. There is this possibility to achieve that. Easy grading and feedback. All users have a storage space, all teachers and all students, and it can be used on any device. Let me just try to move this. Okay, that's better. There is a possibility, there is possibility to apply social constructivist approaches and connectivist approaches. And these two learning theories, social constructivism and connectivism, are two of the most widely, let's say, embraced learning theories nowadays. Social constructivism is a learning theory according to which individuals create or construct knowledge through the interaction of their past experiences and what they already know, and the ideas and experiences that they gain through their interaction with their social surroundings. So social interaction is at the center of this learning theory, collaboration and problem solving. As far as connectivism is concerned, according to Siemens, who was the initiator, let's say, of this learning theory, learning, which is defined as actionable knowledge, can reside outside of ourselves within an organization, let's say, or a database. It is focused on connecting specialized information sets, and the connections that enable us to learn more are more important than our current state, let's say, of knowing. So networking is really, really important in learning nowadays. Now, task-based learning is one of the most, let's say, widely used learning teaching methodologies and learning methodologies. So Willis, by introducing task-based learning, believes that learning can be achieved through goal-oriented activities in which learners can use language in order to achieve real outcomes. So basically for Willis, task is any activity that is goal-oriented in which learners use language in a meaningful way in order to achieve something, a real outcome. So in the context of task-based learning, learners use whatever target language resources they have in order to either solve a problem or do a puzzle, play a game, in general to achieve a specific goal, a specific outcome. The tasks therefore have an identifiable outcome, and the main focus is on meaning. So learners use language in a meaningful way. A framework which was proposed by Willis is the following: a framework for task-based learning. Initially, we start with a pre-task during which we introduce the learners to the topic and the task, of course, and then we proceed to the task, which in which learners basically have the chance to plan their thoughts and plan their action, and eventually report on what they did through language production. And after the task is completed, there is focus on form through going back to the activity, analyzing the language that has been used during the activity, and provide your learners with the opportunity to practice. So we are going now to proceed to the second section of this webinar, which is the use of Google Space for education in language classes. And let's start by saying how this workspace works, basically. So in order to enjoy these services, your institution needs to sign up for an institutional Google Workspace for Education account. This is free of charge if you go for the fundamentals plan, so for the basic plan, actually. And your institution, if this Google account is created, has the opportunity to be basically the administrator of everything. And as the administrator, you have the chance to create passwords and usernames for your teachers, usernames and passwords for all your students. So this workspace, let's say, works as an let's say closed environment, closed educational environment, in which all students and all teachers have the opportunity to use all these tools provided by the workspace. I'm going to share with you some examples of how I've been using this workspace during the last years. I have had the chance to create a collaborative, let's say, online learning environment with my students using Google Classroom. Eventually, we, let's say, created a community of practice, and learners had the opportunity to engage in different collaborative tasks. And I think I'm going to show you this, how it was done in actual practice. So this was one of my Google classes. It was a Google Classroom, let's say, that was established for the course English for Commerce, Finance and Shipping students, first-year students of the Cyprus University of Technology. So I created the class using Google Classroom, and I automatically had access to these 4 pages, the stream page. This is the stream page. You can see it now on your screen. In fact, since you have been registered for this course, you have experienced how the stream works. I posted announcements on this stream. So every time I met my students, I posted an announcement. I try to make them familiar with the topics for the session and the different learning outcomes, because I consider this as really important. Our students need to know the purpose of the activities that they are engaged in. And the stream was also used for interaction. So the students had the opportunity to post comments and interact with the instructor and of course with each other. The classwork page was used basically for the assignments and all the material that I wanted to share with my students. So I thematically, let's say, organized my classwork space. You can see all the topics, let's say, organized in weeks and topics, basically. I had the opportunity to create, let's say, assignments, quiz assignments, to post questions, to post material, and as I said before, this space was organized in chronologically, let's say, in chronological slots. and each slot was dedicated to a different topic. The newest post came to the top. I would like to show you a sample of an activity that embraced, let's say, task-based learning, so that I explain to you what I meant by saying task-based learning. So I'm gonna just open this assignment and have a look at the instructions. So my students were invited to participate in this task. Basically, I provided them with a scenario, and I invited them to participate in different meeting rooms in groups. The instructions for what they had to do were here. So basically, the scenario was that Jeffrey Bluestein, the CEO of Harley Davidson, remember these were students of Commerce, Finance and Shipping. So this CEO of Harley Davidson, which was a true story basically, he was thinking about the future. So Harley faced difficulties. They almost gone, let's say, bankrupt some years ago because their sales fell. So the students were invited to look at all the facts here and also study 4 approaches that they could find in their books: the marketing approach, the product approach, the acquisition approach, and the distribution approach. So study this approach, do some brainstorming collaboratively, and come up with the best approach to recommend to Harley Davidson. So this is what they did. They had the opportunity to work collaboratively by meeting in different meeting rooms that were created through Google Meet, another tool that is provided under the umbrella of the Google Workspace for Education. These are just samples of my students' work. Students had the opportunity to study all of these approaches and collaboratively, let's say, think of these, contemplate on these 4 approaches and come up with the best approach for Harley Davidson to follow. And then there was some after, let's say, some post activity during which students had to compile reports. And this was in fact an assessed task. They had to compile everything in a short report. And this task was assessed, as I mentioned. And I'm just going to show you just a sample of student work, so that you see the opportunity that the teacher has to provide feedback. So as an instructor, I had the opportunity to access the file and make some comments and some suggestions that appear here like this. So I had the opportunity to add comments, and my students had the opportunity later on to see these comments and either accept my suggestions or just leave them there. And you also have the opportunity as an instructor to send private comments to your student and also provide them with a grade. So this is more or less how classwork works. And you know, the people page, you have the opportunity to see all of your students, and they have the opportunity to see you and send you an email. And the grades page, where you have all your grades of your student gathered in one space, and you can also export these grades to an Excel, let's say, spreadsheet later on, and make your life, let's say, easier. So I'm going to come back to the presentation now. Okay. And let's move on to the third part of this webinar today, in which I'm going to kindly ask you to collaborate on the use of Google Workspace for Education. Basically do some brainstorming on how these tools can be used in your own educational contexts. So what you have to do is to visit our class on the DC4LT basically webinar series. Go to classwork, go to our classwork page, locate the slot for this webinar, Cloud Technologies in Language Learning. Scroll down and locate the activity titled Working with Google Workspace for Education. So please click on this activity. And what you have to do is the following. This task will help us think of different ways, as we said, in which Google Workspace for Education tools can be utilized by our institution, or how they can be used in our own language classes. So for this task, we are going to work in groups as follows. All the people in this webinar with the names starting from A to D will consist of group 1, okay? Group 2 will consist of all the people starting with the names whose names start with E to H. Group 3, I to L. Group 4, M to Q. Group 5, names starting with R to U. And finally, the last group, group 6, with names starting with V to Z, okay? So please click on the document which corresponds to your initials below and collaborate with others to complete the task. So I'm gonna visit group 1 now and see whether people have started joining the documents, visiting the documents. Good, so I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 of you on this document. So if you can still see my screen, what I wanted to achieve through this activity, apart from some brainstorming on how we can utilize these tools, I wanted you to experience how Google Documents actually work, and show you this interactive side of Google Documents. You can see yourselves on the document, and you can see other colleagues on the documents. Basically, the small circular icons on the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner of the screen are the people who are logged right now on this document, who have visited this document. So you are supposed to be working with each other. You can use this chat icon, okay, next to your names. There is this small icon, which is basically the chat icon of Google Docs. You can use that to talk to each other and interact with each other, okay? Please read the instructions. What you have to do is basically to share your thoughts on these tools, all right? And I'm gonna leave you for like 10 minutes to work on this and exchange views. I can see Despina Haji-Georgiou, hi Despina, as well as other people working right now. And I think I'm gonna stop talking to allow you for some space to interact. And let's come back in 10 minutes. Let's stay, in fact, in our Zoom meeting.
So it's the same task in different groups, right? We're all working on the same task.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, so while you were working, I had the opportunity to see some of your ideas, and lots of wonderful ideas were shared. Um, I'm, I think I'm in group 1 right now, and let's have a look at what some of the colleagues in group 1 have written. So Gmail can be used for communication purposes, so student can reach teachers via email, and teachers can do the same. And basically, there also there can be a student-to-student asynchronous communication through this service. Google Drive can be used by the teacher to upload all the related materials there so that the students can reach. And student portfolios could also be created in Google Drive. That's a very good idea, in fact. Google Documents can be used for collaborative writing tasks. Yeah. Similar to the one that we are doing now. Imagine the potential if the students are also connected synchronously, either through Google Meet or Zoom or whatever. But since we are talking about the G Workspace for Education, the tool to be using is Google Meet for synchronous meetings and synchronous teleconferencing. So imagine the potential when students have the opportunity to also talk to each other and interact on the same document or on the same spreadsheet or even on the same slides. Google Sheets, I think I'm going to visit another group now. Okay, that's group 4. Sometimes group 4 says that sometimes we share these types of files for checking their tasks, checking to see whether they have done their tasks. Yeah, very good. And also for marking. Slides in groups, they can share presentations about the procedure of doing an experiment in chemistry, in a chemistry lab. Yeah, exactly. They can create any type of presentation, let's say, and they can share it with each other. They can also share it with their instructor for feedback. Calendar, planning as part of collaborative work, transparent, yes. Annotate the assignments and the date they are due to, of course. Sites, it's a tool for quick prototyping of websites. Yes, that's right. It could also be used for by students themselves to create their own websites for the course. So as part of a project, let's say. Excuse me. Google Forms, the tool that can be used for creation of quizzes and activities. And it could also be used as a response tool. Responses can be used to create dependent branching of activities, for instance, in games, quest, escape room. Feedback forms. And another colleague says that the advantage of Google Forms is in simplicity and accessibility. Yeah, true. Still, the functionality is too limited for comprehensive surveys that require complex. Yeah, I agree with you. In case of complicated questionnaires, and if you want to conduct some research, let's say, perhaps you should look for another tool. But for quizzes, it is, one of the most widely used tools, let's say, right now. And also for simple surveys, if you want to get some feedback from your student to evaluate your course or a tool that you are using. Google Classroom, an organization and management tool, let's say, of small and large courses and learning spaces. It is connected to Drive, yes, and that's one thing that I forgot to mention before. When you are in Google, in a Google Classroom environment, for instance, this class that I created with my students of Commerce, Finance, and Shipping, when I go to Google Classroom, you will see here that I have automatic access to my Google Calendar and to the class drive folder. So everything is connected. Let me see another group now. And finally, the Google Meet tool. It basically serves as a virtual platform where teachers and students meet during their synchronous sessions. On this platform, we can group students in breakout rooms. In fact, we cannot do this just yet. It will be provided, hopefully, in the near future. But what we can do is actually to create different meeting rooms for our students to, to visit and do some group work. Okay, and let me come back to my presentation again. Let me just go back. Okay. Sorry. So we're going to move on to the next step. Basically, this is what we've done. Okay, we have worked collaboratively on Google Workspace for Education. So we have completed this activity. And the next step will be for you now to experiment with Google Classroom and see the potential of Google Classroom by creating your own Google class. And let's start by visiting a new Google window on preferably on Google Chrome if you have Google Chrome installed. So go to a new Google page on Google Chrome, and what you need to do is to click on this little square icon, which is basically the Google dashboard. And I think I'm gonna do it with you. So I'm opening a new tab, basically. So I go to Google homepage, and from here, I get the chance to use this Google Apps dashboard. Can you see it up here? It's a little square icon with dots. So if you click on this icon, you see all the different applications, all the different software that are being provided by Google. These are, if you register for a G Workspace for Education account, for an institutional account, you get to have access to all these, let's say, tools for educational purposes, and of course, a lot more tools if you click on this more, okay, here. So what I would like you to do is to find Google Classroom icon and click on it. If you haven't used Google Classroom before, to find it, you can just Google search for it. So just say Classroom, and it's usually the first result that pops up on your screen. So this is it, Google Classroom. Please, if I'm moving too fast for you, just interrupt me and ask me anything you wish, okay? Just switch on your microphone and go ahead. Okay, so here I am. This is my Google Classroom environment. And in order to create my own Google Classroom, I need to click on this little plus icon here and choose Create Class. Choose the option Create Class. Okay, this will lead me to this window where I'm asked to provide my class name. Okay, so I'm going to leave you to decide what your class name would be. It could be just a test name for now. I'm going to write test class. You can write anything that you wish. Okay, you could add a section, whether this can be used if you know, you have two classes being taught the same course and you want two separate classes, virtual classes. Okay, or you can just skip it. You can write the subject here, English for communication studies, let's say, or English for nursing, or just English. Okay, room, if you get to meet your students physically. Okay, you can add it here, and then when you finish, you just click on create, and it will only take a few seconds until your class is created. All these instructions have been included on my presentation, so you will have the instructions after we finish. So this is the class that I have created. It's called test class. I can change the name using this settings feature here. So I can visit the settings, my class settings, and change everything if I wish, okay, later on. So you automatically have access to a stream page. This is the stream page where you can communicate with your class. You can post different announcements. Okay. Your students can comment under your posts here. And they can also post, they can also make their own posts if you like, if you choose to allow them to make their own posts here. You also have access to classwork page through which you can create assignments for your students. Let's try to create our first assignment by clicking on this assignment icon. So let's give a title to our assignment. So I'm just going to give this name to my first assignment, creating a Google Class. Instructions, you can give whatever instructions you wish to your students. Part of this assignment could also be a file which you get the opportunity to choose from your Google Drive environment, or it could be a link with some useful, let's say, material, or a video. It could also be a video or a file that you upload from your hard drive, let's say. And you have the opportunity to assign the assignment to all of your students. Right now, there are no students in our class. Our class is empty for the moment. I'm going to show you in a minute how you can invite your students to participate in your class. You can give points to this activity and also set a deadline for this activity, the 25th of March, and choose a specific time. And you can also create a topic and organize this activity under this specific topic. G Workspace for. Okay, and by clicking on assign, automatically this assignment is being assigned to your students, okay? You can also create quiz assignments. You will see that a blank quiz is automatically created here using Google Forms. So everything is interconnected. In other words, all Google Workspace for Education tools are interconnected on using the Google Classroom platform. So using the quiz, you have the opportunity to create questions, multiple choice questions, check boxes. You can also go for the drop down menu or even open-ended questions in which you will request a short answer to be provided or longer paragraphs, let's say. You could add images to this quiz. You could add videos to it. You could separate it into different sections. All right. And your students, when they respond to your quiz, you have the opportunity to view the responses and also export the responses on a spreadsheet here, on a Google spreadsheet, which is automatically stored in your G Drive. Okay, let's go back to the class that we have created. All right. I've lost the class. Sorry about this. Here it is, my test class. Okay, so you could also create a question. You can pose a question that your students can answer. Okay, and you could assign it in the same way. They will have the opportunity to provide you with the short answer. You could also post material here, okay? And again, you can assign this material to specific students or to all of the students of your class. You could create a topic or just categorize this under a specific topic, okay? And post this material. You will have the chance to see all of your students, the students that you will invite in your class. The students can be invited from this page, from the people page. So you could invite your students by clicking on this icon here and type their email addresses. Okay, I'm just gonna use my own private Gmail address now. Okay, so this is the way it is done, and you invite your students. Okay, the students get an email with a link. If they click on the link, they automatically join your class. Of course, the grades page, which is empty for the moment. So I think I'm gonna come back to you now. So is there anybody who managed to create their own class and who would like to share their screen in order to show the work? Yeah, I'm looking at your messages now. So anyone that would like to share their screen and show us their Google Class? Okay, you don't have to if you don't want to. Do you have any questions regarding the creation of a Google Class using the Google Classroom tool? Okay, Stavroula, that would be nice. Go ahead. Do you know how to share your screen on Zoom, using Zoom? There should be a share screen icon. Okay. So whenever you're ready. Ah. Okay. Perhaps my colleague Anna could help me with this. Anna, if you're still here.
Alice, I'm here, but I don't have a co-authoring, co-host rights either. So I think that you should make Stavroula a co-host so that she can share her screen.
Any idea how I can do that? Guys,
yes, you go look at the participants list and there is click on Stavroula's name and there is a more three dot pop up there. I think that you can change her sharing rights from that part.
Thank you so much.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, guys, I've been using Google Meet. So I'm not that familiar with Zoom, to be honest with you. So Stavroula, I think you should be okay now. Yes, we can see your screen.
Here it is. Nice webinar, by the way. Very, very interesting.
Thank you, Stavroula. Okay, if by the way, I can see that Stavroula's environment is in Greek. If you click on the option on where you are right now, if you click on the option select the theme, which in Greek is επιλέξτε θέμα, can you do that, Stavroula?
Not exactly.
It's on
here,
the,
okay.
yes.
Yes.
If
okay.
you click on that, you can choose a theme, okay, for your class. You can choose another theme.
Yes.
All right. And you can even upload a picture, a nice picture.
Here, for example. Okay.
Yeah, you can choose a picture from your computer and put it there for your students to see. Yeah, so this is the way we build a Google Class, and you can do that for all of your subjects. And I bet you might have some really nice ideas of how you can get them interacting. Perhaps some ideas that I haven't thought of. And we would love to hear about these ideas. Thank you, Stavroula.
You're welcome.
All right, and now I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And back to my presentation. So as I said before, you have all the instructions you need here in order to be able to try that later on, or practice later on. Some more information. And now we have, let's have some time for some reflective discussion. In fact, I have prepared another activity for you on our class, on DC4LT class on Google Classroom. So if you could go back, please. This is it. So try to locate this slot, cloud technologies. So here we are. It's this last activity, the reflective discussion activity down here. What is your opinion about this workshop? Has this workshop helped you to form an idea on how you can use Google Workspace for Education in your class? Before we move on to the activity, I suggest that I'm going to open this discussion as an oral discussion. I'm going to invite any questions that you might have on the use of the Google Workspace for Education, and then I'm going to ask you to answer these questions using the comment feature underneath this post. So any questions so far, any comments, any thoughts on this? Perhaps if you have tried using these tools in the past, what was your experience? We would love to hear.
Hello, can I go first?
Yes.
Great, it's Burcu. I'm working at a state university at the Department of Foreign Language Teaching, and we have been using Google Classroom as well for quite some time. I had asked about the rubric, but while you were sharing the assignment, I saw that on the right end, I guess, right? There was the icon for a rubric, so I already saw it, so I'm not going to ask once again. It's actually great to have all the classes there in one platform, and as everything is integrated, it's also great to use Google Meet. When you record the session, the link immediately is sent to your drive and you're able to share it with your students easily. If you do it with Zoom, then you are going to download the recording, then you are going to upload it somewhere so that you will be able to share with the students or with the people in charge at your school. So I really like that everything is integrated and there are so many tools. I haven't used the Google Slides, so I will try that. And I used the Google Sites for blogs. I asked my students to create their own blogs because they are pre-service language teachers. So when they graduate, they're going to be teachers. Therefore, I said you can create your blogs where you can share all the practical ideas, tools you learned, all the materials you developed throughout these 4 years. So maybe others can benefit from you also. You can have it like a portfolio in the future to use. So
excellent idea.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been great to hear again and find out about the missing points I had in my practice. Thanks a lot.
Okay, we thank you. Okay, yes, I forgot to mention that you can also upload through using Google Meet. You can also upload all of the videos that you have created with your students, all of the videos from your sessions, basically. You could upload the link on Google Classroom, either on the stream page or share it on the classwork page as material for your students. So yeah, thank you for reminding me this. And let's have a look at the chat. It was useful. Personally, we used some Google items you showed, and it seems to me that the LMS works like Cambridge LMS or similarly with tasks that can be open or closed with a date. Yes, that's right. You can schedule the exact date that you want your tasks to be available to your students.
Thank you.
Okay. I thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Alice, thank you very much for this useful workshop. I just wanted to make a comment, and it's not a question. It's amazing when you show all these Google features to students, because most of them simply know Google search. They know how to use Google to search for things. And when you show that dashboard square, and you ask them to click, and then they receive more and more, they find it really amazing that Google has all these features for free. And there are so many things that you can do with these, the Google application. It's always a surprise for me as a teacher, but also nice to see that we are showing so many things to our students beyond the mere Google search.
Yes, so I absolutely agree with you, Anna. And you know, there are so many possibilities. You have mind mapping tools, you have you know, for brainstorming, you have tools for creating you know, diagrams or coloring, or you have different sorts of tools. And believe me, it's impossible to know everything. You need to experiment a lot, and you need to don't be afraid, not to be afraid to you know, to use them and try them with your students. Depending on your students, of course. You know, if it says ESP that you are teaching, then some specific tools could be more applicable to a specific audience. If it's general English, then, you know, some other tools could do the job. Mikhail is saying something. My comment is that there is a lot of resistance of the policymakers. Yeah, the stakeholders, the people who are concerned about the privacy, who do not want to use any tools created by corporations that process the data. Well, that's true. That's true, yeah. And this, in fact, is one of the challenges, let's say, that we mentioned earlier. Yeah. And, you know, there is a lot of concerns going on regarding privacy issues and so on and so forth. So I think it's time for us to go back to
I think there is another question, how you can delete a class that you have added.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I think you can do it from here. If you say that you are in a class, let's suppose that now we are in this class and we want to have a look at all the classes that we have created. You click on this main menu icon here, and you visit your home environment, the home classes environment, and I think you can do it from here. You could, okay, you could actually archive it but not delete it, or you can edit it. You could actually change the name of this class. But if you don't want it to appear here, you could just archive it. For instance, by clicking here, you send it in your archive, and your class from now on will appear as an archived class, which is not being used by anyone. So down here in your archived classes. Okay, so I have a lot of archive classes because I have been using this for quite some time now. And you can then totally delete your class from the archive by choosing on this 3 dots, let's say, option here, choose delete or restore. So in other words, put it back into your main environment, Google Classroom environment, if you want to restore your class. So this is the way it should be done. First, you archive it by clicking on these little dots here. You send it in your archive, and then you can delete it from your archive, or even restore it if you like. Okay, so as I was saying, let's go back to our DC4LT Webinar Series class. So let's find the slot that was created for this webinar here. And please spend the rest of the time that we have to answer these two questions. We would love to hear your feedback. We would love to hear your suggestions and how this workspace can be, this workshop can be improved, and whether it has helped you to form an idea of how you can use this workspace in your own class. You can click on View Question here, and you can post your answer as a comment, preferably, so that everybody will be able to see your answer. Please do not hesitate to add suggestions if you have any suggestions for improvements. So here we are, reflective discussion. Just click on View Question. And you can add your comment underneath using the Add Class Comment feature. So let's spend the next 7, let's say, minutes doing that. Sorry, I just realized that I wasn't sharing my screen. I hope you didn't have a problem with locating the activity. I thought I was showing to you how to do it. Okay, let me just share my screen and show it to you again. Sorry about that. Okay, so DC Webinar Series page. Okay, let's go to classwork. And try to locate the slot for this webinar titled Cloud Technologies in Language Learning. Okay, and I'm talking about the very last activity, reflective discussion. Just click on this activity and follow the instructions. Open it, view the question, and use the Add Class Comment feature underneath the post in order to comment. I'd like to thank everybody again, and I have included on my slide some recommended reading for you on basically on all the things that I've mentioned in my presentation, learning theories, the methodology of task-based learning, and also some publications on the use of cloud computing for education, and more specifically, the Google Workspace for education. So that's all. Thank you very much for being here. And we are here, as I said earlier, And make sure that you also join my colleague Maria Berifanu's workshop later on. Thank you all for participating in the workshop. Bye-bye for now.